way. And so just a little bit about Becky and her background. She mentioned it already. She is a broadcast journalist turned chief marketing officer. Becky founded her company, Market Exec, in the summer of 2023 as a fractional chief marketing officer. And Becky began her career as a broadcast journalist, and she learned one of the most crucial lessons: when it doesn't work, turn it off and turn it back on. And she spent 24 years in cities around the country before she moved into the corporate world. And since her broadcast days, Becky has led marketing and communication teams for such verticals as nonprofits, biotechs, higher ed, and financial institutions. So today, Becky comes to us as the leader and a fractional chief marketing officer who helps small to mid-sized companies uncover their brand voice to build genuine, clear, and consistent stories. So with that, Becky, please take it away, and thank you for being here today.
All right. Well, I'm glad I actually can do it. For a minute there, I wasn't so sure this was going to happen. I would like to start today with letting you all know that I have received the highest honor a solopreneur can ever get. Please hold. I came downstairs to my office. I got Employee of the Month.
Nice. Congratulations.
Well done.
Was it a unanimous vote?
Yes, I'm going to talk to the voting committee tonight at the dinner table and find out if I also get a good parking space together. I just want you all to know that you are now working with an award-winning brander right here. I just thought that was, I came down the steps and I'm like, what is that on there? So anyway, so I am now an award winner, Becky Freemal. Thanks for everybody for coming. The conversation today is about brand voice. And as you can see, it's a very casual setting. This isn't all sorts of formality. And we're just talking about the importance of brand voice and increasing your story. I'm going to share my screen, which, my Lord, you guys, I couldn't even get my camera up. So let me make sure that this sucker works. Let me tell me if you can see it. You guys good?
Yep. Just do it down, up and down one time. Just make sure that we can see it moving. Yep. Perfect. Yep, good.
Yeehaw. All right, well, let's go. So first of all, I know that Rick kind of told you guys a little bit about me, and I see some familiar faces on here. So I know a few of you guys also know a few things about me. But I will tell you that for the vast majority of my career, I worked on telling stories. Everything revolved around telling stories and getting the ratings, and that is what moved the needle. And then in 2017, I jumped ship and went into the business world and screeching stop on the storytelling. And I realized lots of people were not even talking about storytelling. They were talking about their flow charts and their forecasting models and pie charts and bar graphs and the bottom line. And I thought, wow, all right, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I also will lean into your flow charts and your bar graphs and your pie charts. And the more I leaned into the data, the more I realized I was getting pulled back. I was getting sucked back into the story funnel, because you just cannot connect with people. They're going to glaze over if you're just talking about pie charts and bar graphs. And so that was when I realized the importance of marrying both of your, there we go. Your brand voice is your people and your data. So your people and the stories meshed with the data together, that sweet spot right there, that's your brand voice. It's about storytelling, but I want to back the bus up, if you will, and talk about the foundation of storytelling, which is your brand voice. And that sweet spot is what ties it all together beautifully. So one thing I always like to tell everybody, communication and marketing is kind of like peanut butter and jelly, if you will, or biscuits and gravy. I don't know. Think of your favorite two things. You really can't have one without the other far behind. And the way to explain it, for at least for this, for marketing and communication, is your communication could be on point. You could have the best brand voice, the best storylines, all the things, if you will. But if you don't have the marketing channels in place and the right marketing channels in place, it's going to fall flat. And if you flip that scenario and you have complete bunk for your messaging and not really good communication at all, and then you have the stellar marketing team that gets it out the door, you're sending out the wrong message, possibly to the wrong people. And that's also a great place to, unfortunately, fall flat. So as a fractional CMO, I see that whole process from beginning to end, but I really want today to be focused on the brand voice and the importance of that, because that is an integral part of building your foundation to get your storylines cruising and to meet the people where they're at that you want to impact. So as I kind of said, I kind of jokingly say brand voice is like Oz behind the curtain. It's the silent partner, if you will, of your brand voice. And here's an example of 3 big companies that pretty much everyone here knows. I hope actually everyone knows: Coca-Cola, Nike, and then Slack, if any of you guys use Slack with your business teams or your clients. So Coca-Cola, their brand voice, one would say, is friendly, inclusive, optimistic. Nike's brand voice is positive, friendly, and motivating. And then Slack, it's clear, concise, and it's human. But you don't necessarily see them saying those words. They're informative words, again, kind of that silent partner. And to give you an example, I wanted to dive into Coca-Cola for the example. So there's the brand voice: friendly, inclusive, optimistic. They have a zillion taglines because they've been around forever. So I just plucked a few of them from their website, but I just want to show you these. Like in the 20s, they had it had to be good to get where it is. Or in 1938, the best friend thirst ever had. Where there's Coke, there's hospitality. And if all of you don't remember this one, I'd like to buy the world a Coke. You're welcome, because now you're all singing that in your ear.
See the commercial around the holidays.
I like to buy the world a Coke, but none of you want to hear me sing. Too bad. Just did it. Have a Coke and a smile. You can't beat the feeling. Life tastes good. You get the idea. Friendly, inclusive, and optimistic. They all shine through in these taglines. So your brand voice informs the taglines, but they aren't necessarily the taglines. You aren't going to see Coca-Cola, friendly, inclusive, optimistic. It's not that deliberate, but your brand voice should be very intentional and very deliberate. And here are a few more things that it should be: genuine, simple, consistent. Genuine, because you want to be a human first brand. People are your bottom line. And all of that tug of war, leaning into the data and trying to get away from the stories, and then all of it sucking me back in. I realize the bottom line is very important. The bottom line is the number one driver of your business. But I would not tell you the bottom line is your revenue dollars. Your bottom line are your people, because your people make the decisions to then move those revenue dollars. So you have to be able to connect to them in a human way. So the human first brand is super important. Simple. We, as business owners, need to understand our material so well that you can speak it in the simplest of terms. The smartest people I've ever met are the ones who can just speak your language, and they do it so well. And then consistent. Every touch point shares the same story, and the timing of the storyline also is consistent. So it's not just, hey, I see this company on a billboard, I see them on social media, and I met Becky in person, and they all are consistent. There isn't one who is wild and crazy and flamboyant, and the other's like bored and whatever. Like, it's the same. But you also want the timing to be consistent. So for example, when it comes to the marketing channel, say you post on LinkedIn or something like that, you don't want to post and then just crickets for the next 5 months, because somebody might see your billboard or your LinkedIn post, or, well, not LinkedIn because you didn't post, but something else. And then they go to your LinkedIn to check out if you're legit, and it says like 5 months ago is the last time you posted. That really does create an issue. Consistency, I would tell you, is going to be more important than quantity. If you can post a lot, do it, but be honest with yourself. So if you're like, oh my God, I can only post once a week, then fine, post once a week, but then do it. Be real with yourself. And this kind of goes back to what I was just saying about the genuineness and the authenticity, that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So again, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. People do business with people. They're not doing business with that skyscraper or that institution. That trust and that connection is built with the people. And it flows internal to external. And I tell people, it's kind of, I don't know if you guys ever heard of, I can't see all of you. I keep looking over here because that's where you are. And I'm going to just act like you're all nodding. So just, humor me. Mm-hmm. I see Kathy. Mm-hmm. Smile and nod. That white picket fence syndrome that you hear people talking about, like we're one thing behind the fence and then you walk out and you act like something different. We all know those people. We all know those businesses, and it's aggravating and it breaks trust. And so when you're talking about a brand voice, it is really important that what you're doing internally is also what you're doing externally. It needs to flow beautifully between both of them. And here's kind of an example. If you're talking about internal, let's look at this. You've got executive team memos, you've got emails and reports, you've got the all team meetings and cross-departmental communication that should be informed by the brand voice, your board presentations, your job descriptions, which then start to flow to the external. Your job descriptions will inform your job postings and the onboarding dialogue, which, by the way, onboarding tosses you back over into the internal side. But it gives you the idea, all of this ties together. So the website, the email, social media, paid media, billboards, all of these touch points should be the same. They shouldn't differ, but depending like, oh, we're going to talk this way with a bunch of acronyms internally, and then we're going to change our vernacular and go externally and talk this way. It just doesn't work. I guarantee you, if you speak in acronyms internally, you're going to walk out that door. You're going to be talking in acronyms externally. It's in your head. So the sooner you can just speak their language and speak in simplicity, I promise you, it makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so I just have to tell you guys about my pink elephant story. I love a pink elephant story. So I was about a year out of college. I was rocking and rolling at WKRC in Cincinnati, not WKRP, but that was my first news gig out of college. And I was super stoked because I was going to get to go out and field produce this story. And as I was going out the door, this veteran reporter comes to me and just super cool. Hey, Becky, tell me a little bit about how you prepared. Just mentoring me because I was surrounded by mentors at that time. It was wonderful. And I said, I looked at the press release. Oh my gosh, you guys, I don't think I've ever read a press release so diligently in my life, but I read every single word. And I was like, I'm going to get this question and this question and this question. I had all written out on my little reporter notepad. And she's like, that's great. And planning is everything. And that's really important. But remember to be flexible. She's like, if you go into that interview with all your questions about a pink elephant and they're like, we want a yellow giraffe. And then you just go to your next question about the pink elephant. And they're like, Freemal, we said yellow giraffe. And I'm like, okay, third question, pink elephant. You're going to lose the interview. You're going to tick off the person. And you're really going to make your news director mad when you come back to the station without a story. Honestly, you guys, I can't remember. I think I rocked it. Let's just act like I did. I went out, I field produced the story, and it was great. Ratings everywhere. But I want to equate that kind of to the business world. If you're in your boardroom and you're like, you know what? Pink elephants are all the rage. That is the jam. That is what we're going to do. And we're going to go out in the world and we're going to tell everybody we're rocking the pink elephants. And then you get out there and bam, there's that yellow giraffe. And you're like, oh, shoot. We didn't look at the data. We didn't do the research. It was just 2 or 3 of us hanging out in a boardroom who thought we knew everything. And now everyone's excited. And there we're standing with our pink elephant. Well, you got a little bit of a mismatch now. So now you're in front of an entire target audience that you didn't research. They don't want the product that you have. And if you decide to say, oh, we're going to just stand right there and do the selfies with the giraffe, look at us, we are awesome. You just ticked everyone off. The pink elephant who thought you were his friend is upset. The yellow giraffe knows that you're full of it. And even the cute penguin is angry. So you've got to make sure that you do this, you do the research, you work on that data, and you bring the people in to tell the stories. You can't sit at your desk by yourself punching out what you think might be what people want to hear, because it doesn't always work that way. So I want to give you some data and an example of a story that impacted me right out of college, shortly thereafter, actually, that story. And the data itself seems pretty small. Hourly wage, $7. Yes. Me and Tiny T there roam the earth together. It's been a few years. My paycheck, taking everyone out for dinner, was $560, and I made just over $14,000, like $14,500. Pretty unassuming numbers. And think about a company's data points. That's just one Excel sheet line in the mass of sea of all of them. The story behind that is I was 22. I had gotten my first on-air job. I was so stoked, you guys. I couldn't wait. Went up to Vermont where the gig was. Oh my gosh, 8.5 very, very long months later, I left because I got a job that was only promised to me for 3 weeks. The man said that I was going to, hey, come for 3 weeks. If we like you, you like us, we'll stick around. But I was so miserable at the job that I was at, it was time to go. And just to confirm that my decision was correct, I had to do an exit interview. with the news director that made my life a living hell for 8.5 months. And I will sum it up with you. And he wrapped it up with, Becky, most people get better. You never did. So with that in my 22-year-old brain, I hopped in my car and I drove 11 hours back to Cincinnati, and I started on my 3-week job. And every night I was working on my resume, and every night my mom noticed and said one time, Becky, why are you working on your resume? You just got a new job. And I was slightly perturbed. I'm not going to lie. I was like, Mom, you know I'm no good. And he said it's 3 weeks long. I mean, after 3 weeks, I'm not going to have a job. You guys, my mom turned on a dime. She was so ticked. And she was like, I do not want to ever hear you talk about yourself like that again. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Like, I think I was like, am I going to get grounded? So D-Day comes, 3 weeks comes, and my boss comes to me and says, all right, it's time. Let's go talk to my boss. We want to, I was like, oh my God, you and the boss's boss. So we go in, and you guys, drum roll, please. I walk in the office and they say to me, we are so happy with your work. Not only do we not want to, we were going to pay you $7. We are now going to pay you $7.25 an hour. That was the best 25 cents of my life to date. Maybe there will be another better 25 cents down the line, but I highly doubt it. 25 cents more an hour, $20 more a paycheck, a mere $520 for an annual expense. That $520 is what the employee loyalty cost to the company. Had they lost me, had they been dinks like the other guy who I left and did lose his company money with employee churn, research out there shows about 34% of somebody's annual salary is what a company loses. So really, thank God I was highly underpaid, but still the turnover cost would have been $5,000. So it saved that company $5,000. Think about that with your executives and your 6-figure folks. That's a huge, huge amount of money for you to lose due to a crappy brand voice that you didn't follow. And in this guy, I would also like to say your brand voice should be nice, by the way. Just don't be an asshole. That's another good example. So that being said,
what is it? What slide is that advice on? Is that on any of these slides?
The don't be an asshole is every single slide. That's just the nuanced undertone of my whole presentation, guys. But the point is, I could just tell you, hey, 25 cents, no big deal. But if you inverted that conversation and you looked at it and you're trying to figure out what your brand voice is, pay attention to those small details in the data, because there are some really big stories that can save you money. And also, I'll show you some external examples, bring you in money. So another story that shows that flow from internal to external was not long ago. I was at a lunch event. You know the drill. You go, you shake hands, kiss babies, count how many business cards that you can exchange with people, the whole 9 yards. And I got to talking to a woman, and she said, you know what? I see your billboards everywhere. Now that I'm talking to you, it really seems legit. Like, you guys really are kind of a fun crowd. And I'm like, absolutely we are. So it was a beautiful marriage of our external talking, our external billboards talking to her. She drove down and saw the ads, and then just meeting me in person were the 2 touch points that she had. I actually ended up leaving that company, ironically, but I went back to visit some old coworkers, and you guys, out she walks. I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, ever since I spoke to you, I wanted to work at that company. And they hired her on. And it's because that brand voice flowed all the way through, from our external paid to touch points with employees to the job description to her getting the job. Humorous part is I was like, deuces, I'm not here anymore. But that's my point. A brand voice is the organizations. It's not any one person. And the data behind that is just one big chunk of a piece of data that I found that I thought was really important, which is this, that $92 billion are what companies spent to train a new employee in 2020 and 2021. Well, train employees, not just one. So again, when you do the brand voice and you do it well, and it flows from internal to external communication, it can save you quite a bit of money. And another fun fact here from Investopedia is that it takes a company up to 6 months to break even on an investment. And that's not always, could be even more. Which goes to this, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, and I just wanted to touch on it quickly. The communication model, 738-55. 7% of your communication is received and sinks in through words. 38% is tone, and 55% is body language. So it's really important for you guys to understand that too. Action is so important when it comes to brand voice. It brings your mission, vision, values, core tenets of your company to life. It really does. And I don't think anything sits on a shelf anymore. Everything's in a computer. But when it sits on that shelf and collects dust, and what was the point of doing all that work with your mission and your vision and your values? Bring them to life with your brand voice. And it really does make a difference.
Becky, do you, just quick question on the,
Yeah.
do you think any of that changes for, now in this new world where we work remotely and do meetings this way?
I do not. And I'm actually curious what everyone else thinks. I mean, like right now, for example, I think you can feel my energy, through the screen. And I think, heck, you guys, I was in a meeting the other day and I was talking to somebody and I asked a question and this is what I got. And I was like, oh my, is it working? Like, is she there? And then finally she answered. And I was like, what was that all about? But the point was there was a lot of lack of motivation, a very kind of blah human individual. And it was a really interesting, odd conversation. So yeah, I think so. I don't know. What does anyone else think?
I think I can absolutely feel your energy coming through on video by the tone of your voice and your body movements. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so here we are, not necessarily in person, but what happens if I was like, you guys, I am the most exciting person ever. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, no, you're not. You were full of it. You're lame as can be, So yeah, and Rick, I almost think it's more important because people are just craving that connection, craving it right now. Yeah. And this really helps with that. So I think it's really important, if not even more important, but, and heck, if anything, COVID taught us how important that connection was. Let's not go down that path. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about the external. This is an example. This is where everyone thinks brand voice hits, and it does also, by the way, hit here. This is a campaign that I did for a company. And in the beginning, we had revamped everything. And we wanted to do brand awareness. People knew the company existed, but we wanted them to know that we existed through this new brand voice. It was a new kind of refresh. It, we had a lot of older customers and we were trying to really gather that younger generation. And so with that, we did a brand awareness campaign at the beginning after we spent a lot of time on the brand voice. And this was not a small task. You can make your brand voice as small or as big as you want based on your budget, really, and the people that you can hire in. In this case, it was a bigger organization. So we were able to bring in like a creative director. We brought in a performance marketing team. And then we used our internal team and we really dug in and spent quite a bit of time on this brand awareness. On the brand voice. But then once the brand voice was ready to go and launched, you guys, it rocked. This team was amazing. We got 760,000 YouTube views at 100% viewing. And the more views you get, the cheaper it is. So we got those views at 1 cent a view, which exceeded the benchmark by like 66%. Look at that trend line go. Look at that trend line. It's a very official one. We moved to conversion marketing. And really conversion marketing, guys, is whatever you want the conversion to be. So if you want to convert someone to buy the widget, then that's your conversion. If you want to convert someone to hit the call to action button on your website, that's your conversion. So our conversion was to get our products. It was a financial institution and we had products we wanted people to get. And so when we switched from brand awareness into conversion marketing, that brand voice carried us all the way through. And once people really got to know who we were, they understood, we started to get their buy-in. It really helped with conversion. We drove 28.6 million in revenue with a consistent messaging with a triggered email campaign. And then we drove another 70.7 million in revenue with a go-to-market product campaign. I would tell you 100% that brand voice was everything, because at that point in time, it wasn't just a marketing and branding type thing. It was really like who we were as an organization. So all that to say, I want you guys to have a little bit of a takeaway on how to build a brand voice. Does that make sense to you guys thus far? Like what a brand voice is and its importance? Does that?
Yeah, I do have a question too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to address this as we go. For those of us that are smaller businesses, right?
Yep.
driving 700,000 YouTube sites would be like off the charts. But
Yeah.
can you also talk about how, let's call it granular, folks with smaller businesses or fractional practices can employ some of this stuff too? Yeah.
Yeah. So let me, on the next few slides, and I'm glad you brought that up, I will kind of talk on both sides of that coin. On the how to build a brand voice, because the next two slides are what it is and what it isn't. And this is true no matter if you're me, solopreneur with employee of the month status, or if you have 1,000 people employed by your company. This part won't change at all.
Awesome.
So first of all, a brand voice is consistent personality and a personification of your company. It is consistent at every touch point as well between the company and the people it wants to impact. It's informed by data. It is created by people who bring diversity of thought and open innovation. And that is really important. And even though you're a solopreneur, I would still try not to be a party of one on this one. I would even pull in maybe a client or get a customer survey or, something like that, testimonials. There's always someone else. Well, we all hope there's someone else. Otherwise you're out of business. It's an important aspect to get that diversity of thought. A brand voice builds trust. It connects and engages people. And again, kind of going back to how I started all this, it informs the storylines of an organization. Storylines stir emotion, and emotion drives action, and action is what we want. It brings a heartbeat. It brings the human feel to an organization. What it is not is just the logo or the brand colors alone. It is not the data alone, and it is not different at every touch point. So you don't know who you're getting, depending on if you picked up the phone for customer service, or you talked to someone in person, or you walked in, or saw a billboard. It needs to be consistent. So it is not different at every touch point, and it is not a fleeting vibe or a feeling that changes, every time there's an employee churn or a C-suite changeover. I've seen that happen too, when the C-suite changes and they're like, brand refresh. And I'm like, but it's not your brand. It's the organization's brand. And look at Coca-Cola. Look at how their brand, even though the taglines change, that feel and that vibe, it's consistent for over 100 years. And kind of to that point, it's not just one person sitting at their desk punching out brand position taglines and without any data or any input from anyone else. And again, the tagline is not your brand voice, but again, your brand voice will inform that tagline and that catchy messaging. So this is where I kind of wanted to dig in and give you guys some takeaways on what you could do for brand voice, how you could build it as a party of one, plus again, maybe have a few other people, get some feedback, surveys from customers, third-party vendors. A lot of us work with a virtual assistant, or like in the marketing world, we work with web builders, paid media teams, that kind of thing. That's another one. These are three things that to keep it genuine, simple, and consistent, I would tell you to ask pointed questions to uncover the real story, gather a room of representative people and clear your calendar, get rid of distractions and dive in. And I want to start with the first one. These are some questions that you should ask, that you could ask, that will really help get you to your end goal. What brings us the most pride? What do we do well? Who else does it well? And be honest about that. Who do we want to reach, and what do we want them to hear? It's really important to ask these questions of yourself. I mean, this is partly a party of one. You could do this like Rick by yourself, but then I would ask, Rick, we have our group meetings every 2 weeks. I would ask people in those meetings as a perfect example, like, hey guys, let's go through this. Let's talk about some of these things. Who do you aspire to become would be another great question. It's all of these being real with yourself and where you are and where you want to be, so that you can find that gap. At the end of the day, all of us either founded a business or we work at a business for a reason. We have a purpose. And this brings you back to that. What was your purpose? Why did you do this in the first place? Because that's where your joy is. That's where you're going to find your passion, and you're going to move forward. And if it's a job, why did you take the job in the first place? If it's because you have to pay the bills, and sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but try to find that passion, try to find that purpose. There's got to be something that keeps you up and going every morning. Then when you gather a room of representative people, diversity is so important here. A discussion like this really does thrive on open innovation, and ask them to bring their data. So some ideas, if you're, again, you could bring third-party vendors in, you could bring some of your clients in. that you've had for a while that are trustworthy. If you're a little bit of a bigger organization and you've got team members, you could use your finance team, your risk, your training, your operations. Then aside from team, you could have different ages, ethnicities, maybe employees with different varying times on the organization. Like, hey, this person just got onboarded, so they can tell us how they even found their way to our company and what the onboarding process was like. And then talk to someone who's been around for 40 years and getting ready to get the gold watch. I don't know if that still happens anymore, but if you got somebody 30, 40 years in, those are great questions to ask people. And then you clear your calendar and you dive in. The actual work session, I'd say give it at least a half day, maybe 2 to 3 hours. And it's so important. If you do have other people there, it requires a culture of trust. It really does. Everyone has to throw out their honest answers. No one needs to, if anyone feels intimidated by anyone else in the room or anyone intimidates somebody, you're not going to get your true brand voice. And it's only going to hurt. It's only going to hurt you or your organization. So the marketing team poses the questions. The marketing team can guide the conversation and capture the information at the end, but this is not the marketing team's brand voice. This brand voice belongs to everybody. That's why that diversity of thought is so important. Now, the marketing team needs to know what to do with it. That's why they need to guide it and ask the questions. And they too can also answer. I mean, they can be a part of that discussion, but it's not their brand voice, it's the organization's. And I tell you all of this because next slide 32, my friends, this right here is where I see so many companies start. They're like, we're doing live streaming. We got ads. We got social media. And I'm like, why? I don't know. Who are you trying to reach? What's your purpose? Don't know. And I'm like, oh, but that is why I'm here. So it's all good. It keeps me employed. But this list can be overwhelming. And it is a huge red alert. And I put that on there if this is where you're starting. Because there are very purposed and driven and intentional reasons for why you use any of these tactics, like brand awareness versus marketing conversions that we just talked about, and so many others. It's so important that you know who you are and who you're trying to reach, what your brand voice is, so that you then know what channels will get you that best result. This is the peanut butter and jelly analysis. If you didn't do all that work prior and you don't know who you are and what your brand voice is, and you just jump right to the marketing, it could be a little painful. It could be a little painful. So with that, I wanted to see, and I am totally going out on a limb here, if anybody wants to open your mic, and Rick, if you even want to do it, just super high level, if you were going to do this for you, these are the things that we could talk to you about what you'd want to bring in.
Yeah, so I'll be the guinea pig. Yeah, so I think that I would almost call it like a what's it called? Like a matrix, right? Like it's almost like there's like 3 different audiences that we have, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I guess we're messaging the same thing to each audience without understanding. Now I'm wearing pink elephants versus yellow giraffes.
There you go. Oh, yep. Go, Natalie.
Will we have a chance to ask a couple questions at the end, or do you want us to ask them as we go?
You know what? I'm fine either way, but I tend to like asking as I go. Otherwise, I forget. So okay. If you just want to ask now, go ahead.
I'll just throw this out there, and if you want to answer it later, sure. You can.
Sure.
The question was, how do we know what channels to use and how many to use, especially if you're a solopreneur and you have limited time, energy, resources to tackle them?
Right. Let's go back. I'm going to see if I can get back to this one. There we go. So there's some things that you can look at this. By the way, everybody, I think Natalie, and I told her this earlier, I know Natalie is a rock star on LinkedIn. And I think you're doing a great job. And why I think you're doing a great job is not because you're posting every single day. It's because you're consistently posting. You just happen to choose almost every single day. And it works. And I would tell you, if you're like, yeah, but Becky, it's killing me. I don't think it, and I'm not saying that you're saying that, but if you did say, oh, that's too much work, you could still knock it back to say 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
Still get a good, consistent message out there, and maybe take a couple hours off your plate with that.
I will say, I'm just going to jump in and say something. I was doing really good, and then I hit a wall. I had this weird health problem that cropped up in the middle, like towards the end of January. And for like 2.5 months, I didn't post at all, which was I knew I wasn't supposed to do that. I knew I should keep going because I was doing like 2 days a week, and I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. So I just kind of stopped, and I started again about a week ago. And I do notice that my engagement is way down compared to what it was before. So I'm in the process of like hoping and trying to work on, going. I had been commenting and stuff, but I just hadn't been posting. So that's my little thing. I just wanted to be out straight up with that.
Natalie, I just went to look you up on LinkedIn. I have a second connection, Natalie White, who's in Moolah Kicks. Is that you?
No.
Okay.
I'm a portrait artist. So.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Who does amazing portraitures. I'm just going to throw that out there. Amazing.
Awesome.
So one thing that you could do specific to your scenario, Natalie, and this is something that's really important, is it's not just, again, I know I keep saying this, but it's not just about quantity. It's about the quality, and quality. The bullet points that I would put under quality are not just consistency, but also, one would argue probably even more than followers, is engagement. But of course, it's hard to get engagement if you don't have followers. Pretty tied together. But when you have those followers, you can start figuring out and finding, like, look at your past families, for example, that you've taken photos of, and past clients, and start engaging with them. Like any of the people who they're not all going to be, but some clients are more active on social media channels than others. Find out where they're active and engage with them, and like and love things, and even make comments, knowing that, yeah, you're commenting on their post, but what you're really doing is commenting for their entire network to see.
Right. Okay.
You could get on their post, on their Facebook page or their Instagram, and tag, "Hey, Smith family, do you remember this shoot? I just happened to come across this. It just popped up as a social media memory. It was so much fun."
Okay.
All
right. Yeah. I was wondering that because, LinkedIn has a lot of value for certain tier of like potential clients, but I find most of my clients are on Facebook for personal reasons. So I feel like I should probably go back to using Facebook more than, like, I really haven't used it much recently, but.
Yeah, for you specifically, I actually do think like Facebook and even Instagram would be really good spots for you, because you're a B2C, your customers are families who are looking to capture those memories.
Okay.
LinkedIn would work if it happened that one of the parents was some big time CEO and happened, but that's kind of happenstance. It's not always. So yeah, I think that I wouldn't abandon LinkedIn, but maybe take some of the time you're putting on LinkedIn and move it toward
and
Facebook.
Transfer. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who else do we have on here? I know, Rick, you do all the HR stuff. Natalie, you do portraiture. What else? Who else is on here? Like, what kind of businesses or industries? Just give me an idea. Somebody throw something out.
Hannah and I actually, we both just started. I'll preface that for our teams, but we work in banking, and we're both on the marketing team. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so that's great, because I used to work in financial institutions. So let me tell you how we did ours. When we built our brand, that absolutely rocked it. And I promise you, I'm not being arrogant, because it was my team. I just led them through the process. They were amazing. So the vertical was financial institution. The people who we had come to the table was our VP, our executive vice president. I happened to work at a financial institution who did not believe at the time that marketing should have data. So I had a scenario where I had to do a lot of massaging of, like, trying to extract it. Some of them held onto it white knuckled. But so one of the key players for us in that was the CFO, because he was the keeper of all the data. So when I say had people come with their data, he was like the only one who had it at that time. He was like the gatekeeper. So we had him come, and he was all about it. he dove full force in. Data he brought was the markets we were in. We happen to be a credit union, so we got membership. So we looked at where our field of membership was, where most of our members were. We looked at our age groups. He just had all that demographic. And then once we did that, then you guys know from the marketing aspect, you can start building your psychographics out. Like, okay, this is an older demographic. I mean, super high level and very simplistic, I know, but like, oh, they're really old. Okay, they're probably on newspaper. Oh, they're really young. They're probably digital. I mean, as black and white as that sounds, we all know there's more nuances to it. But then that allowed us to start digging into, okay, these are the demographics. Now we're going to find out what the psychographics are. And then a great example for stories you might find, you guys, we found great stories because when the people who come and talk at these meetings also bring the data, which again, just heard my little struggle with the data. But as time went on, one of our great people to have at the table was our home loan officers, our mortgage officers, because our loan officers were like, you guys, here's a great example, small bullet point on an Excel sheet that everybody would have passed by, except for the person who knew the customer, the member, whatever, because it was a credit union. She said, you guys, this was $1,000 loan. And we're like, wow, why don't they just use their credit card? Well, we dug into it a little bit more and somebody got the $1,000 loan because they didn't have the ability to get a credit card. Their credit score wasn't high enough. But what we found out, and we kind of already knew, but it really confirmed, is we had a much lower socioeconomic membership, and that this $1,000 was borrowed to put a wheelchair ramp in for an elderly parent. But those are the stories that some goofy little line item on your Excel sheet could tell you if you bring the people that are attached to that data into the room. Does that help? Does that kind of...
Absolutely. And that's such a touching sentiment. Thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly, everybody has that kind of emotional tie to why are you, borrowing money, or why are you applying for the things that you're applying to? So it's so important to humanize that experience.
Yeah. And when you start uncovering that in these like work sessions with your teammates and finding out what your stories are, it really informs your story when you find out who you're serving. Because again, at the end of the day, we have a solution and there are people who have a pain point that need that solution. And, as a marketer, that's our job to find, hey, we're here, you're here. Let's find a way to get you together. It's not, if you approach it with a, hey, big guy, I like your tie, we got this great home loan. No, they're going to go running for the hills. But if you're like, you know what, we're just authentically able to help you and we want to. And we want to help you get that wheelchair ramp, or we want to help you get into that first home that you've been saving forever for. Or, hey, you know what? Because of your relationship with our bank or our credit union, you were able to save up that nest egg and finally enjoy your retirement years. I mean, financial institutions are full of good stories with your data. When you said that you're at a financial institution,
I thought you were going to say something else. When you said they were full of, I don't know.
Yeah. No. I already said that assholery comment earlier. I'm good. But this all comes down to, I love this, you guys. This quote is one of my favorite. If you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Don't take it so deliberately that you divide up your time. But the point is, you really need to build a strong foundation. You need to know who you are and who you serve to then move on to that next step. And don't just jump right into the marketing, that communication, that messaging. And then even before that, like I said, back the bus up, it's the brand voice. And it's just a beautiful path if you take that time to build that foundation. And, in a quick recap, that brand voice is in your boardrooms. It is the foundation of those calls and those organizational meetings, the job offer. When they get onboarded, your brand voice is part of the onboarding. And then, of course, where everyone thinks it is, and it is also, is all of your external media, all of your paid media. And I'll just wrap it up with some experiences that I've had, which is where there is data, there is a story. A data point for an adoption agency is a child searching for his forever home. A science and a research lab with coats and microscopes where I once worked, they were working their asses off to find a cure for cancer. And it was a race to find that cure to keep another beautiful human from losing her life. This woman, unfortunately, succumbed to breast cancer. This story right here is a research lab with a cancer that did cancer work in circadian rhythm. We put together an entire package and a story, and her family came in and shared pictures and did an interview with us. And a year later, we had enough money raised to start doing scholarship funds in Mitzi's honor. And where there's data, there's a story. Something as small as a quarter could uncover a story that equates to thousands of dollars for your organization's bottom line. And it puts someone, this girl right here, back on track to her future, because I was down and out when that moment happened. And I'm not anymore. I don't even know where that man is, by the way. But you know what? People, you just got to meet people where they're at. These are real people with real lives. They have real challenges, and they've come to us, to you, for help. So take the time to learn their story, because it will definitely remind you of yours. And with that, shameless self-plug, guys. I'm launching a book this summer. I never thought I would do that, but I'm writing a book right now, and it launches this summer, and I'm super excited. And I'm a speaker and workshop leader, a fractional chief marketing officer, and a book launch this summer. So, and just a quick plug for the fractional CMO work, because I know we have some marketers on here. I do work with internal teams as well as for people who don't have an internal team at all. So that's the beauty of fractional work, as Rick knows. We have meetings every other week. You know, as a fractional COO, CMOs, you know, CFO, any of those fractionals can embed themselves with the current team and help do this work. Or if you guys are smaller and just need a team built, we also help in that way. So there you go. Shameless self-plug. Buy my book this summer. Look on LinkedIn. I'll have it all over. So. All
right. So Becky, I am totally bad at technology. I can't even say it. What do? I take a picture of that thing in the middle? Is that what I do? Mm-hmm. And that takes me to your website?
Yeah. Yep. Just open up your camera. It's a QR code. So you just open up your camera. Oh, I will show you.
I'm not a boomer, but I act like a boomer when it comes to this stuff.
So when you do this, there's a little yellow thing that'll pop up. You click on it, and it's going to pop up as the market exec. And then it goes to my website. Can you guys see that? Oh, if you can.
Yeah.
There you go. Look at
Very
that.
Cool.
I created that. I'm just kidding. I kid. But yeah, if you guys want to reach out, if you have any questions, I put that QR code on there because and it's themarketexec.com. Oh my gosh, you guys. It's themarketexec.com, not marketexec.com. I'm glad that I just did this whole presentation and I forgot the word the, and it just crashed it all to the ground.
Wow.
Oh,
So anyway, but yeah, reach out if you guys have any questions. I have a contact me page on there. So
awesome. Great. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. And Becky, this was awesome. I did my first QR code, believe it or not. So that's awesome. So thank you. Great stuff. Great stories. Love how you brought the brand to life in that story. So I did record this, so we will get this out to everybody so that they can and give us 24 hours, 48 hours, and we'll have it out to whomever would like it, and we'll go from there. So thank you, everybody. Becky, I appreciate it. Great job, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.